Hello people, future me here. I've just edited the video and after rewatching it, the intro is, let's just say, a little bit jaggy. Yeah, it's really annoying. So this is just a makeup intro on the spot for me. Just on the spot, nice and quick. Pretty much I say in that intro that I have never watched the Evil Dead films. I know, this is terrible. But I have watched the first four, the original trilogy and the remake, and I will probably be seeing Evil Dead Rise on Sunday. So I decided let's just review these first four films now, and then we'll be ready for when I see the new one. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy this video. Sorry for this absolute abysmal intro, but I had no choice. But enjoy the video. This movie is really weird. The first 20 or so minutes is pretty much just setting up the characters, setting up the weird deadite stuff, which are the demons in this movie. And then after that, this movie goes all over the place. We're getting flipping possessions, we're getting wacky stuff, we're getting humour, we're getting weird dead-eyed ladies sitting down looking like the most creepiest things ever. This movie is just ridiculous. But boy, is it great. It is fantastic. The main standout of this film is easily Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell makes these movies. And I'm a bit worried to watch Evil Dead Rise because he's not in that one. So I don't know if they're going to make that one any good without him. That's the thing. But as I said, this movie is just all over the place. We get loads of goofy moments. And there is some genuine scares in this as well. There is some genuine amounts of tension. And even the goofy scenes, they are kind of disturbing. We all know that famous scene, if you've watched this film, of the trees being a woman. And yeah, it's ridiculous. But that's pretty much just a taste of what this movie has to offer. We're getting weird puppets looking like dead people, and they look incredibly cheap. But to be honest, for a 1980s film with a very small budget, I let it off. And I've got to say, the makeup in this film is actually very good. I really do like the makeup of the white dead eyes for the possessed people, the weird colours on their face representing their veins and stuff. Even the gore effects look really, really realistic. And I feel for people who are really squeamish, they would not want to watch this film at all. And also, Sam Raimi's direction really does shine here. I've always loved these films. I love the original Spider-Man films. I also like Drag Me to Hell as well. You know my thoughts on Multiverse of Madness. But this is where we get proper Sam Raimi. This one in Evil Dead 2, which we'll get into in a bit. This is real Sam Raimi. Close-ups, weird camera movements to represent the demons going towards people. This has everything you want from a Sam Raimi film. This movie is just a lot of fun. The first 20 minutes, I will say, are very good for setting up characters, especially Bruce Campbell's character and his girlfriend. But I will say that part does move a little bit slow, and you kind of just want to get into the real stuff. But apart from that, I really have no flaws with this film. This film does look cheap looking, but for a small budget in the 1980s, they did the best they could, and I have to give them a ton of credit for trying. And for what it's worth, this movie does look good, as I said, for what it is. So The Evil Dead is a very strong start to the franchise. I really enjoyed it, and it made me really excited to watch the other films. So I'm going to give The Evil Dead 1981 a very solid 9 out of 10. Now, let's get on to my favourite, Evil Dead 2. Now, the weird thing about Evil Dead 2 is that this isn't really a true sequel. This is actually a sort of remake slash reboot. It's very confusing. I know Bruce Campbell sort of explained it, but I still haven't watched that video yet, but I probably will after this because I'm still a little bit confused. But let's just say that this is a remake of Evil Dead. You know how I said the first Evil Dead was great? Well, imagine great, but 2 times better. Because this movie is pretty much perfect. This movie has everything and more from what you want from these films. There's more goofiness. There's more scares, especially at the start. Bruce Campbell is acting his ass off, and I have to give him a ton of credit for doing most of his own stunts in this. There's a scene where he grabs the back of his head and he flips over onto the floor. Yeah, apparently that's actually him doing that. And I have to give him a round of applause for that because I could never do that. And this movie is not afraid to go more wacky than ever. There is one scene where these ornaments just come to life and start laughing at Bruce Campbell's Ash. And Ash is just laughing with them. He does a little dance with the lamp. And it is so goofy. But it is the best scene in this movie. That one scene there pretty much encapsulates the entire Evil Dead franchise in a nutshell. But of course we need some more characters, some more compelling characters. And we do get a new girlfriend for Ash in this, who is pretty much a knockoff version of the one of the first film. And she gets turned into a deadite pretty much immediately. Can I just say the makeup effects are even better in this film. I honestly had to look away from the screen when his girlfriend got possessed because it's those white eyes. The problem with the later films is that they kind of just ditch those white dead eyes. And I don't know. They're just more scary to me. And this movie does pay homage to the original ones as well. We have the deadite in the basement. We have them pretending to be the alive person. Try to trick people into coming near them so they can possess them. It has pretty much everything from the first Evil Dead. But it's like Sam Raimi just said, God, let's just make it 10 times better. And they also tried to connect it a little bit to the first Evil Dead, making this even more confusing. I really need some justification of what this is. Is it a remake? Is it a sequel? Is it a reboot? I don't know. And this movie sets up the third film, Army of Darkness, very well. I really loved the ending scene to this. And while Army of Darkness is a bit weird with its continuation of it, I really can't speak today with that word, it still leads off very well, very goofy, and it makes you excited. So if you really love the first Evil Dead, you'll love this one probably twice as more. It's got more of everything. Bruce Campbell is great in this. This is the best he's been in these films. It is just so entertaining. There's more scares, there's more laughter, there's more goofiness. There is more of everything in this film that you want from Evil Dead. And this is going to get a perfect 10 out of 10. Yeah, again, there is a few scenes that look cheap. But again, for a very cheap budget in the 1980s, they did very well with what they did.
Groovy.
Army of Darkness is the weakest in the original trilogy, but that's not to say it's bad at all. I think really the biggest flaw I have with this film is that it's lost a bit of its scary charm. The best thing about those first two Evil Dead films is that they managed to balance goofy tone with scary tone. But with this one, they just kept the goofy tone. And there's not much scares in this. It kind of parodies itself a little bit, which is fine. It works to an extent, but I don't know, it's just missing that little scary charm that those first two films had. But this film sees Ash back in time in the 1300s, I think it is, where the Deadites are around the world, and he basically has to defeat the army of the undead. We get him flipping hacking these things down with a sword, we get the chainsaw arm, we get loads of action, there is a load of ridiculous scenes. We all know that famous long face bit which had me laughing my head off. The small Ashes as well, attacking him. There's a lot of goofiness and a lot of action in this film. And it is great. And some of the lines of dialogue in this film are fantastic.
Give me some sugar, baby.
I was honestly laughing my head off when he said that line. I don't think if I was having sex with someone I'd say, give me some sugar. That would just be really cringy. But look, it's Bruce Campbell. He could pull it off well. He could pull any girl in my opinion. But I feel with all the Evil Dead movies, they try and one up the other with the weirdness. And this movie is weird in so many places. I mentioned the long face. I mentioned the small Ashes. there is Army of the Undead people trying to women, and it is crazy. Like, what is going on? The whole conflict between the Knights and the Army of the Undead is to try and get the Book of the Dead so Ash can get home. Because if the Army of the Undead get it, he can't get home. He'll probably die in this time. So it's a good little conflict to raise the stakes a little bit. He wants to get back home. There's this army. So there's a load of tension there to keep you fixed to the screen. And that's where the final battle comes in. The final battle does look cheap in some places. But I have to give the stop motion artists a ton of credit. I hope they got their money. Because the stop motion effects in this are the best in the franchise. How they managed to do that in the battle sequences, I don't know. And they deserve a ton of credit. Really, I don't really have that much to say about Army of Darkness. It enhances on the goofy side of things. But on the scary side of things, it kind of just drops it. And that's the biggest flaw I have with this movie. It's missing a lot of that scary charm there. But it is still a ton of fun. The third act, I think, is one of the best scenes ever in Evil Dead. I thought it's fantastic. There is a really goofy romance in there as well, which is fine. It's kind of underdeveloped, but it's there. It's cute. You know, Bruce Campbell is a very attractive guy, so you kind of just like it on the spot. It's so weird. But yeah, Army of Darkness, the weakest one in the trilogy. But that's not to say it's bad. I'm going to give it a very solid 7.5 out of 10. And now it's time for the remake. I'll be honest, I pretty much forgot everything about the Evil Dead remake. If you guys don't know, I am very weird with remakes. I don't mind them if they're remaking a bad film, but when you're remaking a classic like Evil Dead, I'm already not on board at all. So what did I think of this remake? A movie which some people actually do genuinely like. Well, it was a movie. Let me say that in the words of Harrison Ford. The only thing I can remember from watching this movie is that we see Jessica Lucas, and I recognise her from a couple of things. And yeah, she's from Cloverfield, and she's in the show Gotham. She plays Tabitha. By the way, it's a very underrated show. Watch it if you haven't. So what did I overall think of this film? Well, it's there. As I said, it's a movie. It has the charm of Evil Dead. It still contains some of Sam Raimi's style, which they try and knock off. And for what they did, I thought they did a pretty decent job of it. But of course, with all these weird horror remakes, they got to have the weird handheld cam all the time. I don't know why horror remakes always do this. Always the handheld cam. Why? Like, just keep the flipping cameras still for once. I also think the makeup in this wasn't as good. I do think some of the Deadite designs were... Yeah, they weren't as scary. I think the makeup is fine. I think the artist did a decent job, but there's just something about those dead eyes that are creepy to me. I don't know what it is. And this movie has just lost a lot of the charm that those original 3 films had. The guy who plays Ash, I say Ash, he's a different name in this. The actor in this did a good job, I will give him this. But he doesn't hold a candle to Bruce Campbell. He is just playing the most stereotypical guy ever with a sister. But one thing I will give this movie is that I really did like that sister and brother relationship. The sister is pretty much a drug addict. She's struggling to sleep. And then she has to deal with this crap. Yeah, it's a mad day for her. It's a mad life. But I really did like that dynamic. And I will say the blood and gore in this is actually the best in the franchise. There's one scene which... Small spoiler, I won't tell you who the character is, but there's a scene where someone's arm is crushed by a car, and she has to rip it out, and wow, that was gory. This film is just gore, gore, gore. There's nails being stabbed in people's faces, there's everything. People's heads are getting chopped off, people's tongues are getting sliced in half. This movie is a big gore fest. And it is very Hollywood-fied, as I like to call it, but... I don't know, as much as I don't really like when Hollywood does that, it didn't really bother me for this film, seeing as Evil Dead is quite famous for its blood and gore for the most part. Overall, there's just really not much to say about the remake. The performances are pretty good, the gore effects are good, the makeup is good, but again, I just prefer those dead white eyes. but the scares are non-existent in this as well. It's losing a lot of that goofy charm that those original three had. I don't know. I really just don't remember much about the remake at all. I can see why people do like it, but for me, nah, just wasn't my thing. So I'm just going to give the Evil Dead remake a 4.5 out of 10. Like, it's there. It's a movie. It's a remake. You get Evil Dead out of it, but it just never lives up to what I expect from these films. And there you have it. My reviews of the first 4 Evil Dead movies. I will try to see Evil Dead Rise very soon. My overall thoughts on this franchise so far are very positive. I love those first 2 movies. The third one is good. The remake I kind of just don't need to watch now. I can say I watched it and I never have to watch it again. And yeah, fine. That's all I'll say about that movie. But if you haven't watched these movies, I'd actually give them a shot. I actually really like them. They really surprised me. If you like horror, you'll like these. If you like a bit of comedy, you'll probably like these as well. So overall, the overall Evil Dead franchise is very strong. Highly suggest watching it. And guys, that is it for the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Sorry there is no video on Tuesday, but this video is going to take ages to make as at the time of me recording this. So I just need a lot of time to get it done. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Evil Dead films in the comments. And please do not spoil Rise for me because I will be so mad about that. Have a good day and see you later.